you're going to try, go all the way. Otherwise, don't even start. If you're going to try, go all the way. This could mean losing girlfriends, wives, relatives, jobs, and maybe your mind.
Just the messenger, giving you all a heads up of what you should possibly be looking at. If you don't want to, it's fine, but at least I did my duty and I made it available. Okay? At least I did the right thing. And it's up to you what you're going to do with that information. Please listen to it. Heard something. Alright. Listen to this. Excuse me, it's going to be some familiar, excuse me, some familiar names coming right now. This is titled Mr. Ash's Diaries. How exciting is that? There's more in the woods than Sabe and Tyler's Incident. And this is long. That's the title. Right on, man. I am so glad to hear from you again. This starts off with good day to you, good sir. It's been a long summer here in Michigan. It's been hotter than Satan's ballsack and a pair of wool-lined leather underwear. It's finally becoming more seasonal, and fall has seemed to set in. Soon the woods will be filled with whitetail hunters, including me. Bow season begins tomorrow. For the next 2 months, I'll be in the woods. Since I retired, I've been focusing on these diaries, and I have to admit, I haven't worked this hard, that is, speaking to elders and translating Assiniboine, and it's pronounced Anishinaabewin. Who would have guessed that pronunciation? The Ojibwe word for language, the cognitive English, than I did when I was working toward my master's degree many moons ago. Oh, this became a mind-opening experience that I'll allude to later. Since June, I have spent hours with elders of the Ojibwe, Potawatomi, and Creek elders from your neck of the woods. Well, far neck of the woods, Ontario, Canada. These diaries are daunting at times, and the fashion that Mr. Ash wrote in 2 and sometimes 3 dialects became overwhelming at times, and I finally told myself, take these to the elders. That's exactly what I did. And I regained some of my sanity back. If anyone has learned a new language, you'll know exactly what I mean. I packed up and went to the UP of Michigan for 3 weeks and spent my time with an elder not far from here is the Hannahville Potawatomi community. I had such a hard time trying to pronounce her name that I asked her if I could call her Nukamis. Nukamis, the Ojibwe word for grandmother. After she laughed at me, she nodded and said that'd be fine. The best move I've ever made in the pursuit of knowledge, and that includes the time I spent listening to PH Does in college. These volumes are filled with the knowledge that is usually held by the elders for the elders. I could tell that she was leery of letting me know what was written, but she also knows that much of this information is long overdue to be heard and lived. Though, before I get into this, I had a situation that occurred back in July 2nd of this year. That didn't happen to me, but it shook a man that was nearly the same size of actor who portrayed the character Gregor Clegane, also known as the Mountain, in the miniseries Game of Thrones. For those who haven't seen the miniseries, including me, look up Halfpoor Julius Bjorgensen. Halfpoor is 6'7" tall and 400 plus pounds. I had to search the internet to find a man this large. A kind of man you definitely want as a friend. Though he was massive, he was mentally wrecked. He was a mentally wrecked individual when I met him. Well, that sucks, ass. Oh, damn. Hold on. And then I splashed coffee right up into my eyeball. Nice. Now, it was the morning of Saturday, July 2nd, just past 7 a.m., when I had to make a trip to the small store that's actually a gas station for milk. The store is 6 miles from my property, and I could drive there in my sleep. I pulled into the parking lot from the north and went in to see my old friend who was working behind the counter that morning. He is Potawatomi, and we call him Nee, N-E-E. I grabbed the milk, headed to the counter, and exchanged sarcastic pleasantries as usual. Then Nee asked me to check on the biker sitting next to the building on the south side. I asked if he was drunk, but Nee had this look in his eyes that I have seen before from many folks that live up here. He was concerned, with a look of, I believe I know what the problem could be. I said, okay, and Nee told me to put the milk in the juice cooler next to the register counter. I knew then that I would be out there for a while. I walked inside the store to find this huge man sitting against the wall, his hands atop his head, staring at the concrete. In front of him was a newer Harley-Davidson that was still running, and I said, hello there. Are you okay? He didn't say a word. He kept staring down. That's when I noticed he had pissed his pants. Now I was worried if I was dealing with someone that was cognitively sane. It was then I knew this massive man was terrified, and I said, hey, big guy, what did you see? He looked up and had a look on his face I've seen before, and I told him, you saw one, didn't you? He stared at me and said, I don't know what it was. I told him, listen, I'm going to turn off your bike and then we can move back to the store and talk. Shut Harley down and told him to come around the back. There's a water hose back there. I told him I was going to wet his jeans down and give him some dignity. Maybe that water helped loosen his mind. He kept saying, I can't believe this, over and over. After wetting him down, I knew I had to try to snap him out of his mental lock. I literally got in his face and said, hey, talk to me. He stopped saying, I can't believe this, and stared at me with the eyes of a child that's afraid their parents aren't going to believe them. It was now that I told him my name, and he told me his name, Tyler. I told him, did you see a big human lamb on the road? He looked up and said it was running next to me. I asked where. All he would say was, down the road. I said, okay, we're getting somewhere. I asked what exactly happened. I would definitely believe him. He finally opened up. He said he was riding to a friend's cabin up here. He had left from downstate for his 5-hour trek up here at 1 a.m. When he was coming across the road, as dawn was breaking, he said he looked to his left, and running next to him at 45 miles an hour was a guy, his words, covered with hair. And he said he swears he was smiling at him. I asked how big he was, and he raised his voice and said, bigger than me. I told him, I bet. That's when he asked me, what the hell was it? I told him to pop a squat in the concrete. He was still trembling, and I didn't need him falling on me once I told him. I said, Tyler, what you saw was the native folks here called Sabe. Many brain-dead individuals call them Bigfoot. They are real. Did it do anything to you? Touch you or your bike? And he said no, that it just kept pace with him for about a half a mile. Now, for those who are going to say, why didn't he speed up and get the hell out of there? These roads in northern lower Michigan are very dark at night and some are curvy. The street lights are few and far between in some areas, and all you have to rely on are your headlights. These roads at night are also humming with deer. You don't want to speed up here at night. You'll find Bambi in your back seat or, in Tyler's case, sitting on your lap if you survive. Tyler said it was like it was effing with me. He could have reached out and knocked me off the bike at any time. I asked how big he was, and Tyler raised his hand above his head about a foot and indicated it was a foot wider on either side than he was. I asked again, he didn't touch you? He said, I'm here, aren't I? He could have killed me at any time. It roared, then screamed at me like someone killing a woman. Though he was scared shitless, I told him you had nothing to fear. I then spent the next 45 minutes explaining to him what the rest of us know up here about the Sabe. After telling him about them, I asked him to come in and meet Nee. Well, first I told him to spray his seat off his Harley before the sun baked the piss smell into the leather. I went in and told Nee what happened, and all Nee said was, I thought so. Once he cleaned his bike off, he came in at the store with a clean pair of pants and other clothing items and asked if he could change in the bathroom. Nee told him there was a shower in the back he could use and shower and showed him the way. I stood at the counter and waited for Nee to come back. Nee was wide-eyed. I couldn't help but laugh when Nee said, a Sabe scared him? Nee is all of 5'6" tall. I told Nee how petrified he was sitting out there. Nee said he was there when he opened the store at 5:30 a.m. A man the size of King Kong sat terrified in his own piss for hours. As I talked to Nee, a sheriff deputy who we all know came in for his morning coffee. I gave him the Cliff's Notes version of the morning's events and asked if he was okay to ride. The deputy didn't say he saw what, or was he drinking? No, he simply asked if he was okay to ride. For those of us that have grown up here, or have vacation homes that are visited year after year, the Sabe is well known and respected. No one up here has lived around them long enough. No one up here that has lived around them long enough are not really scared of them. We respect them, but don't fear them. We all just happen to own land that belongs to them. When Tyler emerged from the back room, the deputy looked up and blurted out, holy shit, he's huge. I lost him. He began laughing, and so did Tyler. I introduced Tyler to the deputy, and the deputy told him what he saw is something he can't officially tell you that they don't exist, but personally he told them they do exist. The deputy is quick to tell Tyler, do not contact these fraudulent Bigfoot groups. We have enough trouble keeping those idiots from trespassing in private land here already, and they would come up here by the van load stirring the pot. Tyler calmed down by now, and he asked him what the Sabe looked like. Tyler said, his face. This is when I stopped him and asked, how did you know it was he? Tyler said, and I quote, he had a bigger dick than mine. After a few minutes of laughing our asses off, Tyler said the lights from his dashboard and radio on his Harley illuminated the Sabe somewhat. His face was grayish, the beard starting from just about his wide nose that hung to his chest. It was close enough to him that he said its breath smelled horrible. The eyes glowed reddish-orange, but the look it had on its face as if it was messing with him. He said, straight-faced, he was. If I wanted to hurt you, you wouldn't be here now. Nee then said, that shouldn't scare him. Sabe has been seen running next to vehicles up here for years and years. The deputy made a good point. As big as Tyler was, the Sabe was probably fascinated to see someone of his size, especially on a motorcycle in the early morning hours. Who knows? But it sounds more mischievous than threatening. But seeing an 8-foot-tall Sabe running next to a vehicle of any kind at 45 miles an hour would threaten the hell out of most. I gave Tyler my phone number, as did Nee and the deputy if he would like to talk about it more later on, once he has all his wits again. Nee gave us all a coffee, and the deputy said he had to run, but told Tyler to call any of us if he needs to talk. I grabbed my gallon of milk from the juice cooler and walked out with the big guy. He thanked me for spraying him down before anyone else saw him, and I told him he wasn't the first to have the same reaction. I told him be safe, heading to his friend's cabin. Then he said, F that, I'm heading home. I told him again, there's nothing to be afraid of, just be careful riding the early morning hours up here. They like to watch the roads from the trees or in the ditches. I stretched out my hand to shake his, and his hands were so big he shook my arm. Up here we have a phrase that loved ones tell their own, or what friends tell their friends to be safe. The phrase, watch for deer. I told that to Tyler, and I told him to call if need be. He thanked me again, started his bike, and headed for the freeway. I made it back to the cabin at 9:30. My daughter, who had been waiting for the milk, gave up and made French toast instead of pancakes. I told her what happened, and all she said was, I should have known. It's the end of August, and I haven't heard a word from Tyler. I have a feeling a big man like him, I never will. Besides being totally terrified, his persona of the big guy, afraid of nothing, was chopped down that morning. He became like the rest of us, asking ourselves, why aren't we being told about these people in the woods? I have a feeling once he was in his right mind, he would not take ridicule very well if he spoke to some of his compadres about this incident. I wish him all the best, and I hope this doesn't keep him out of the northern woods, but I would bet the cabin he won't come back again. I hope he calls, but I'm not betting on it. Okay, yeah, no doubt, man. You know what? Reading that one that absolutely brought to mind that time my ex-girlfriend years ago had that one running beside her in her car, inches from her face, stooping out looking at it, and she said, quote, it looked like it was rocking it out. Her words were, it looked as though it was rocking it out. Like it was having fun. It was entertaining itself, loping beside the car looking at him. And what else? Also, I know a very A-type guy, lifelong mountain horseman, mountain guide, big game guide. And his brother told me at the time he was. And this guy would kick anybody's ass. Very, very fit dude. And he had a reddish-brown one pacing him beside him on his snowmobile, just off in the timber in Alberta, running beside him, quote, effortlessly. Scared the frickin' shit out of him. Right? Why they do that? I don't know. You want to screw with a human being, all you got to do is that, right? But that happens all the time. Anyway, the email's not over yet, you guys. And like you said, you probably won't hear from him. From noting his first initial physical reaction to pissing himself and sitting on the concrete chanting, I can't believe what I saw, or whatever it was. Yeah, I have a funny feeling that he probably slides into the category of I'm never talking about this ever again. I'm not talking about it to anybody, and I don't want to remember those 3 guys that talked to me about it. Probably one of those, right? I'd almost put money on it. It's like how many times I've heard about people have the experience with people, and they don't talk to those people they were with ever again, right? They don't want anything to do with that memory, and get it away from me now and never bring it back at all costs. It's unfortunate. So yeah, I wouldn't put money on him contacting either. I don't even think that he'd go out of his way to secretly seek out and watch this channel or even other ones, I'll bet. But if he is, by some slim chance, I hope this channel's making you feel better, man. Carrying on. The same month, July, my youngest daughter became very ill. She's a pastry chef. A CIA Culinary Institute of America and University of Illinois Chicago graduate, and works for one of the most prestigious bakers in the state. Due to her job, she had to have the jab to work. Filthy pricks. She was fully vaccinated with the booster. She was taken to the hospital on July 17th. She described it as an itch in the back of her throat that became an uncontrollable cough. Within an hour of being at the hospital, she had to be intubated through the trachea. She's in the hospital until August 23rd. The breathing tube was removed on August 13th, and it took 4 stitches to seal the wound. Now she has partial paralysis on her left side. She has months of physical therapy to regain total use of her left hand. I have moved her in with me to assist her with her PT. She's just as bullheaded as me. She's determined to be back at her normal as quickly as possible. So determined, my kitchen looks like Betty Crocker's taken up shop. Since she's been here, I've had at times no time to translate Mr. Ash's diaries. Now she's becoming strong and getting to the point of not wanting me to help anymore. Side note. How many of you got to the point when you were ill that you had enough of loved ones hovering over you? My daughter's there now. Did I mention she was bullheaded? Last week I got back into the translation of the diaries. Folks, stop. Okay. Your next paragraphs talk about the, right? And everybody knows my stance on that. I'm going to refrain from these 2 paragraphs because the little puke, coward ass shitbags who want this channel to go away are surfing through the content of the videos to point out where you or I speak about this one, publicly to get the video and the channel taken off YouTube. Okay, man? So, I'm going to sadly pass on these couple of paragraphs because that's why we got booted last week. And I will tell you what, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to call this part 2 of this email, and I'm going to read this on the Rumble channel in a separate video. You guys can go to it. I'll put the link to that video in the description below once I get it done. Okay, you guys? Because his voice needs to be heard, her story needs to be heard, and you need to hear it and pass it on if you feel. Alright, rant over. I'm going to get your rant on that other channel, man. This is a long email. I wonder if I should do a part 1, part 2 on this. So here's some of the knowledge I learned from the elders back in June. Once I realized these diaries were becoming overwhelming, with some of the words having multiple meanings, I needed the help with the lexicology. I was introduced to a beautiful soul, 87 years young woman with a heart of gold. After a phone call with her, she was more than intrigued to see these diaries. I also made it known that once these diaries were translated, they were handed over the Anishinaabe to teach their children of the people. Sweet. On June 2nd, I made my way to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. I was greeted by 4 elders and their families, some of the kindest, down-to-earth people you could ever wish to meet. After a feast, well, they called it Thursday dinner of venison, elk, trout, whitefish, fried bread, and more vegetables than a suburban garden can grow. That evening, behind their home, a fire was lit, and I presented the diaries to the elder. Alright, got a bit of a blowout there with the camera down the river. That's the camera.
goats knocked over when I first bought it brand new for frickin' $1,800. And it's taking a beating even more. I should probably get it replaced here pretty quick, I guess. So, back in the man cave, and carrying on from where we left off from our generous contributor. Listen to this. They called it Thursday dinner. The venison, elk, trout, whitefish, fry bread, and more vegetables than a suburban garden can grow. That evening, behind their home, a fire was lit, and I presented the diaries to the elder. I let her take her time reading and thumbing through each one. Every now and then I would get a look. It was the look of, oh my. During our phone call, I told her how I wanted the truth to be known of what really lives in the forests and woods. Now that we are face to face, I had a feeling I may not get that information. Well, I was wrong. She wanted to make clear to me that much of this information has been known to the Ojibwe for thousands of years, and when they tried to share the knowledge in the past to those who had nefarious reasons, those individuals to what they wanted and twisted it to their own agendas. She told me that for years the Ojibwe had given this medicine knowledge, but it all fell on deaf or twisted ears. I made it perfectly clear. There are those of us that know of the Sabe, and some have had a terrifying experience in their encounters that still follows them today. It's those folks I want to help. I made it known that yes, we have not been told the truth of their existence, and I also made it known that I know there's more in these woods than Sabe. I got a look from her of, oh really? That's when I knew she was reading my soul. This expression is an Ojibwe phrase for, in plain, no nonsense terms, a bullshit meter. Yes, and everybody has it, everybody looks for it. And I passed with our Aboriginal elders here, as they did with me. As I said before, the elders can tell if you're full of it or being truthful. I went straight to the point. I told her I know of the little people, the bear walkers, the wendigo, the evil spirits. I told her what I knew of the star people, which wasn't much. I told her of the time Mr. Ash and many others saw the Thunderbird fly across the northern Michigan sky. I went into detail of the knowledge I knew of all the beings I had mentioned. When I got to this point, she stopped me. At first, with no expression on her face, she said, okay. Then, as if a switch was turned on, she smiled at me and with a tender and chuckled laugh said, your mind is open to understanding. Let's do this together. She spent a week of reading the diaries. The following week I was told I needed a sweat. A sweat lodge ceremony was held. After spending more than an hour in the sweat lodge, the ambient air actually felt cool. The sweat lodge ceremony is a spiritual and physical purification process. The drum is played and prayers are said. I have to be honest, and I say I felt great afterwards. That afternoon, Nukamus and her friend, an 86-year young Cree elder visiting her for the summer, Miss D, side note, Miss D has a name so long I can't pronounce it, asked me of my personal experience with the Sabe. I told them of that day in the river and 3 other instances I had with them around the cabin and hunting. Then she asks, do I feel frightened around them? I feel more shock and awe around them with a boatload of wonder. Have they scared the hell out of me? Damn straight. Laying in bed with the window cracked about an inch and hearing a roar that turns into a blood-curdling scream will make you wide awake at 3:30 in the morning. All this time, as I relate what she asks, she is straight-faced, no emotion, just an attentive stare. I could still tell she was reading my soul. Nukamus and Mr. D didn't know Mr. Ash personally, though they have friends that knew him. Her friends were the ones that set up our first phone call. I again made it clear that there are thousands of good people that have encountered the Sabe and other beings in the woods and forest. I told her how we all have been lied to by the so-called authorities and made to believe that what we saw was just a bear or just a wolf. But we all know that's a crack. She began to chuckle and said, are you telling an Indian that the government lied to you and you're in disbelief? I couldn't help but laugh, and I just nodded my head. She began by telling me of a passage Mr. Ash wrote in the 4th diary. It was dated October and written in Ojibwe. I know some of these words are challenging, so I will add the Ojibwe word and translation at the end of the email. The passage begins. The spiderwebs are large. I must find plenty of meat for the winter. The spiderwebs are large is a weather sign used by native tribes across the continent, and for the most is spot on. A large web means a long, cold winter. A small web means a mild winter. I'm hunting near my cousin's community. This would be in the Traverse City area of Michigan. The sky is clear and frost covers the ground. The tracks were easy to find. I followed a large set of deer tracks to a ravine. Wait a minute. Oh, this is a quote, okay? This starts as a quote. I followed a large set of deer tracks to a ravine. The tracks ended. None to the north and south, none into the ravine. I went back the way I come to find a set of elk tracks that were heading to the north. I followed the tracks to a meadow. I stopped at the tree line. They were gone. I'm getting frustrated. Where's all the game? Signs everywhere and no game. I walked back to the trail I came in. The frost was still on the ground, but the deer tracks were gone. What kind of medicine is this? I walked to the north toward the lake. I'm not completely sure which lake he was talking about, but knowing where his cousins lived, I suspect it was Fife Lake. The lake was calm, no ducks. That's odd. It's quiet, very quiet. A predator must be near. I heard crows to the east, and they were coming closer. I found a large vern next to the lake and sat behind it and waited. That might have been fern, but it was spelled vern. It became still. The crows came closer. Then I smelt him/her in the trees beyond the path covered by the bush. She walked out and squatted by the lake. The wind was blowing in my face. She didn't smell me, but turned and looked at me. She stood up, and with 3 steps was a pole length in front of me. An Ojibwe pole, or reed, is about 6 to 6.5 feet long. I was so scared I was trembling. All I could do was stand up and look at her. I left my bow on the fern. With a trembling voice I said, "Hello, I mean no bad things." This Ojibwe word can mean no bad things, no disrespect, or no harm. See the end of the email. She looked puzzled. Another word that can mean puzzled or astonished. She stood up and took a step backwards and squatted down. She grasped the aspen tree beside her and with a twist of her wrist broke it off and laid it between her and me. I knew what she meant. Grandfather taught me years ago. She made a low groan. It made me wet myself and came to my mind and said, "I'm hunting to feed my family." She stood up and walked into the woods, barely making a sound. She's out of sight when I heard the sound of many waters. It knocked me to the ground. The sound of many waters means a scream or a roar. I don't believe it was her, but another savvy that was watching me that I could not see. I remembered what grandfather taught me. Where there is one, there is another. I knew I could not hunt here now. That's what the broken aspen meant. They were hunting there now. I would come back when the moon was dark. I went out of the woods the way I came. Still, the woods were very quiet. I was being followed in the brush to the left of me. I knew now I had to make it to the path I walked in and go back to the south. The sky was becoming gray. The clear morning had gone. I headed back to where the tracks were that had disappeared. I felt uneasy. I came to the spot of tracks. They are there again. They were gone, and now they are there again. And this feels evil. I headed back to my cousins. I was a canoe length from the main path when I held in my steps. I could not move. Behind me, I heard a voice tell me, "I tried to stop you. You kept going. The others are near. Tell your people to light their fires and keep them lit for 3 nights. You can come back then." After I heard these words, I turned to see the savvy woman I saw at the lake leaning out from behind a large pine tree. The look on her face was that of concern, almost scared. What can scare a savvy? I said, "Thank you, old one. I'll do as you say." She walked toward an old oak tree and walked into it, and she was gone. I ran to my cousin's community and told them what happened. I was taken to the elders. I told them what we should do. I told them what we should do and about being told of the others. One of the elders spoke. I knew they were here. I've seen their lights in the sky at night. Another elder said he had seen the lights too. I was told I needed to be purified in the sweat lodge, and prayers and ceremony in the longhouse were burnt sweetgrass and sage before returning to my cousin's house. It was only after the ceremony was I allowed to go to my cousin's house and tell them all what had happened. After telling what happened, my cousin said, "The star people have returned. We must place the women and children in the longhouse and be ready if they come." I knew the star people through the teachings of my grandfather. They can be good or evil. Note, this word Mr. Ash used for evil is a word that means true/pure/always evil. It doesn't mean that they're bad or mean or mischievous. It means evil. During this time, after my purification, I was taken to the longhouse with the women and children. I got strange stares from the other members of my cousin's community. Some believe I brought this bad medicine upon them. An elder from the community came in to speak to us in the longhouse. She said she had seen the star people's lights in the sky this past week. I felt somewhat better. Now the community was upset with him and not me. He told us we would be guarded till the time is right to come out. That time is to be determined by the elders and if and when the star people come. That night, a light came from around the lodge door. It shined light silver after midnight. There was no sound and no sound of movement. The next morning I was told we could leave the lodge. I was never told what happened that night, but something happened. I was given an apology. I was told by my uncle it wasn't my fault the star people had come. Now, I know they did come. Near noon I spoke to my uncle about what happened, but he wouldn't tell me. I asked, why are the star people so bad? He said, they are not all bad, some are. It's what can come with them we fear. I asked, what do they bring with them? And he said, the evil ones. Holy shit. This is when Nukamus stopped reading and Dee gave a low moan. I could see she was reluctant to go any farther, but she continued, and I have to admit it was hard for me to wrap my head around what she said. Quote, this happens up here to this day. Lights are seen in the woods at night. They move as though they are gliding through the limbs of trees. An elder can tell you what it might be by the color of the light. A bright blue-white light is seen the most, though many have seen a light that looks like the color of fire moving through the trees. This light is associated with the Wendigo. Note, with this said, I will not write that name out again. It is well known to the Ojibwe that saying that name 3 times can bring a being to you or cause something heinous or malicious to occur. For now, I'll use just the letter W. Good move. When the light is seen, something bad always follows. That's a quote. I asked if the, quote, W, quote, was like the skinwalkers at West, and she said no. A skinwalker, or as we call them, bear walkers, were once medicine people that were overcome by an evil spirit. We don't speak to them. We don't speak of them. A W is an evil spirit. They can take the form of what they want, though when they take the form of the Sabe, you can tell the difference by their feet. A W has 3 toes. Sabe has a feet like ours. Okay, that's frickin' interesting to me, because I know people have seen the 3-toed track, and we have heard from hundreds who have as well, right? I asked if this could have been what the Sabe woman was trying to warn Mr. Ash about when he was hunting, and she nodded and said that it could be, or that star people were near. Now I had to ask, who were the star people? Do you know? She laughed at first and was still laughing and said, they come from the sky. Basically, she looked at me and said, duh. I said, I know that, but do you know where they come from in the sky? And she nodded and said, the hole in the sky. The hole in the sky is what we know as the Pleiades. Pleiades? Pleiades? Pleiades. A cluster of 7 stars that can be seen in the winter. There are actually thousands of stars. This, quote, hole in the sky, unquote, is where the Ojibwe tell of where they originally came from. I asked if the star people looked like us. D now spoke and said, "Not like an Indian, somewhat like a white man, but they are tall with silver gray hair and blue-gray face. Their eyes are like black stones. It's been many years since they came to speak with our elders." Newcomb has said the last time she could remember a meeting was back in the early 1990s. But many have said the Star People have come to them in dreams and given them medicine, and that still happens. End quote. Knowing this now, I asked if there is a link to the Sabe and the Star People. Newcomb has said, quote, "It's been said the Star People will come and take a Sabe. Some say they have even seen a Sabe being taken in a bright light." End quote. I asked, "Do you believe the Sabe are from the stars?" And she said, "I don't know exactly. They've been here longer than us, though they have many of the same powers of the Star People. My grandmother told me when I was young, all the Anishinaabe in her grandmother's grandmother's time had the same powers. I told both these ladies about the DNA study and that they had been conducted in the most layman terms I could, and made it known that science has proven that the mother Sabe was a modern human. I did show them a picture of what modern human looked like, and told them the father's DNA was unknown. Now, both these women know about DNA and its principles. They live in a world of modern technology, the same as we do. Newcomb has said, "You won't find the father here." He raised her hands to the sky. The Star People have taken many women and children over the years. We know it. When we tell the police, now this could be the county sheriff's department or state police, most don't believe us. Many of the sheriff's deputies are native and do believe it, but their hands are tied by the laws. Still, they'll search for the missing but never find them. Some have returned or were found and tell of their time with the Star People and told they're crazy by the white man. And this is why we handle these matters ourselves for the most part. We know what happened to them. I asked, "Has the Sabe taken women and children?" She said they have tried, especially the women in their moon phase, the monthly cycle. We always tell the women to be extra careful during this time and to stay in their lodges. At one time, the women going through this phase were placed in a longhouse and were guarded until the phase was over. A longhouse is just that, a long house. And they are between 60 and 75 feet long, between 15 to 20 feet wide, and 18 to 20 feet high. The houses have a large fire in the middle of the building and are divided into sections and raised platforms for sleeping. We watch our children closely in the early morning and the evening. Not so much because of Sabe. There are wolves, bobcats, and bears nearby. We taught our children not to be afraid of the Sabe. We're not scared of them. They are scared of us. The part of 7 grandfathers' teachings, we respect them. It's hard for the white man to believe that one time we lived in peace with the Sabe. We traded with them and they would come to powwows. Their children played with ours. They are relatives. Then she pointed at me and said, "You should not be afraid either. You have a touch on your spirit. They know you." The way she said this sent a chill through me. For a moment I reverted to a 5-year-old with a case of the EBGBs, shaking and rubbing my arms. Newcomb's ND just laughed and said, "You can't shake it off or rub it away. The touch will be with you all your days." After some levity and cracking some jokes about what she said, these women have laughter that's contagious. The mood was definitely lightened. The elders are always serious when conveying knowledge. I could see there was some apprehension in some of the knowledge they were telling me, but they never stopped and said, "You shouldn't know this, or knowledge is not for you." I did take some time telling them your channel and the good it's doing helping those who have had encounters with the Sabe. We watched one of the videos sent in about a man that had his dogs tore apart. I asked ladies why Sabe do this. Newcomb has said, "This has happened here in our community." I asked why. She became serious again. "Our minds are not like Sabe's. They are connected to the earth in ways we are not. The dog's mind in some way is closer to the earth like Sabe. A dog can speak to Sabe in a way we can't. Dogs are closer to the earth through their senses than we are. They know when danger is near. They know when a storm is approaching. They can sense good and bad, and the Sabe can do the same." I told her I understand the canines and even cats have a sixth sense that we can't understand. Dee laughed and said, "It's too bad that not many people don't have this sense. their world would be a better place if they did. I asked, why kill a dog? Newcombs said maybe that dog told Sabe something it didn't like. A dog that won't back down is very determined and loyal. Not many dogs would stand up to Sabe, but those that do can be hurt badly or killed. We know our dogs. We know when they need food, want to play, need to take a crap, and we know how they act around others. Always trust a person the dog trusts. Never trust someone it doesn't trust. Though hunting dogs are different. They know the purpose, to hunt. They are trained from a young age to bring the meat to the people. Many become hard-headed and believe they're the best. Side note, how many of you know a hunter that will tell you every time you see them, my dog will out-hunt any dog in the state, or no one can touch my dog. Those who have hunting dogs have put in years in making the dog the best hunter it can be. Those dogs are instilled with the notion that they are the best by their handlers, being told over and over again, they're a good dog, you're the best. They may not speak our language, but they know our feelings. The old saying, the dog knows what I'm thinking. Well, in a way, yes, but what is truly meant is, the dog knows how I feel. When constant positive affirmation is given to a dog, they come to believe they are the best. For some hunting dogs, that can be their downfall. As my dad would say, never let your mouth override your ass. Newcombs said, dogs tell other animals and people to stay away. Do some of those animals and people stay away, or does some start a fight? Sabe sees a dog as our companion. Is Sabe afraid the dog will tell us something? She just shrugged her shoulders. She went on to say, I remember stories my grandmother would tell of a time when the Anishinaabe could speak to the animals and the animals would talk to them. We are equals. And some of the Anishinaabe become proud and say, we are better than you. When this happened, the animals stopped speaking to us. Many mids, the medicine people, will tell you that the animals can still speak to us if they wanted to. They know our words. Without thinking, I asked, if they know our words, why don't they listen sometimes? She began to laugh and said, dogs and Sabe are like people. Some are assholes too. I sat there with my head down, feeling like a mental midget, laughing at myself, thinking, I should have known. Quote, the Sabe can understand, know the intentions of any animal and any person. It's hard to say why Sabe would kill a dog. They have reasons unknown to us. They have the mind of the natural earth and other powers that we have forgotten. Sabe can become a part of the earth. They can be in front of you and you will never see them. Two people can be together, yet Sabe will only let one see them. That's interesting, isn't it? We've heard that before too. They can blind our minds. They rarely give their medicine to more than one person. The Sabe seek those with a humble heart, a good heart, ones that don't believe they are better than others. I kind of laughed and told Newcombs, maybe that's the reason no one on a television show has found one. No doubt. No doubt. And Newcombs laughed and said, Sabe are real. Television is not. I don't watch television. Everything I need to know is outside my door. Ditto. I can tell that this is a touchy subject with Newcombs, as with many elders I've spoken to across the country. They hate television. Well, they hate what is seen today. They want their youth to learn the ways of their people, and those ways don't include an electric brain cell killing device that too many can't live without these days. I knew better. Change the subject. You said that there are evil ones in the forest. Is there a way of knowing if they are near? Newcombs nodded. Sometimes they can appear as a bright light like a ball of fire. You asked about the dogs. Yes, some have been killed by Sabe, but some have been killed by the evil ones. I asked, do they look like Sabe? She looked sternly at me and said, they can look like whatever they want. They, like Sabe, can become anything they want. They can be a wolf, a coyote, a fox, a raccoon, whatever they please. Sometimes you can tell by the tracks. Footprints become paw prints. We know not to track them. We'll leave that area. Some have seen them turn into starlight. I asked what that meant. Newcombs said, have you looked up at a star and seen it shimmer with the different colors? It's like that. And that is when I showed her a clip from the movie The Predator. She leaned back and gasped. She said, yes, like that. I've never seen this phenomenon, but I know many have described seeing this being in this state. I asked, can Sabe do the same? All she would say was, I never heard anyone say they did. They have said that they will just disappear before you. Sometimes into a tree or a rock face. Sometimes they'll become a round white light and shoot into the forest. Most of the time they just run away with hardly a sound. When they warn you away, they will rip down trees as easily as we break twigs for the fire. I told her I've seen one run across an opening while deer hunting, and I bet I could have sat a dinner plate on its head and it wouldn't have fallen off. They appear to glide through the woods. Nicodemus asked if I had ever seen one run on all fours. I said no, but I heard it was scary as hell. She told, your people, the Lakota, have a word for this and for the Sabe when they run this way. It's Ikatomi. I told her I knew that word as a story that Oyate would tell about the trickster spirit. She said yes, that's one of its meanings. It also means insect-like. Like the way a spider runs. We have nearly the same words. Asabekeshi Minwendan. Minwendan. Folks, if you've ever seen a spider run, you'll know the body of the spider stays perfectly perpendicular to the ground or across a wall. Only the arms and legs are in motion. That's the description of a Sabe running on all fours. I hope I never see it. Me neither. I told Nicodemus, I know they are fast. She told me a member of her community was coming home from St. Ignatz, Michigan, the first city across the Mackinac Bridge, across Route 2. He had entered the Hiawatha National Forest when next to his pickup was a Sabe running next to him at 50 miles an hour. He nearly had a wreck when he sped up to get away. Once he sped up, the Sabe ran to the north through the forest. An elder has spoken with in Wisconsin have said a police officer and many others witnessed a Sabe run through a parking lot of a bowling alley. It is estimated it crossed the parking lot at 56 miles per hour and disappeared into the woods across the street. The bottom line is, you will never outrun them, period. Nicodemus said, those who ride quads and snowmobiles need to be careful too. A member of her community was 18 years old and was hunting alone down an old trail about 6 miles of the town. It was dusk as he was heading back when he saw a Sabe come out of the pine trees in his rearview mirror. The Sabe ran up to the back of the snowmobile and picked up the rear of the machine 4 feet off the ground, then dropped him and the snowmobile. He smashed the throttle and hit 2 trees getting out of there. That man's now 33. I asked if I could speak with him, but I was told he won't speak to anyone about the encounter. It hasn't stopped him from being in the forest. He's now a Department of Natural Resources officer for the state of Michigan. Nicodemus said, Sabe sent him medicine. He learned a lesson. He's a good man. As a 17-year-old, not so much. Basically a rowdy teenager with the balls the size of boulders, and of course, he knew it all. After the encounter, he became close to the elders and became a leader to the youth of the community, teaching them that there's more in the forest than just deer and trees. I told Nicodemus how many would never return to the woods and forest after an encounter. Miss D kind of giggled and said, it's because you aren't taught. We teach our children at a young age about the forest and all that lives there, and, the same way you were taught how to read and write at school. The earth can't be found in a book. You have to experience it. I was taught to listen to the wind this time of year. As fall begins, you can tell if winter will come soon or not by the sound of the leaves. Slowly they turn from a whoosh to the sound of tick as they die, and fall. We were taught to watch as the grass stopped growing and began to turn brown. Once this happens, the earth is readying itself to go to sleep for the winter. We were taught to respect the Sabe and the little people this time of year. They hunt this time of year for the same as we do. It's rare that we run into each other, but when we do, we are taught to respect them and ask for their respect and tell them to respect us. If they don't want you there, they'll tell you. I asked, how will they tell us? Miss D said, it may be as simple as an acorn being thrown near you or a stick. It could be a rock. They also tell you through growls, screams, or the breaking of a tree. You have to be really close to them for this to happen. Sometimes they will let you get close to them so they can watch you. They read your heart. It's very rare that you It's very rare that you close enough to them and have them growl or even let you see them. But if danger is nearby, like a bear or a cat, bobcat or mountain lion, they may let you see them as a warning to get out of there. They may even tell you in your mind to leave. Usually you'll never know they are there. I asked about the evil ones. How do we know if the evil ones are in the woods? Are there signs? There are no signs except the 3 toes. They are said to not make a sound until you see them. The W scream and growl at the same time. It is said that they can freeze you in your tracks, but those who meet one, well, some never return. Those that do describe a being that is terrifying to see. They can have many forms, but each of them is terrifying. Some have been seen with a dog's head and deer antlers. Some have been seen with a bear's head, a deer's nose, sheep horns, and sheep horns. Their hands are long and have fingernails like a bear. It's said if you see one and run away, they will torment you for 3 years. Of course, I asked how. They will give you nightmares or worse. They can appear as a dark shadow and cause you to believe you're losing your mind. Only a medicine person can help rid you of this curse. Our relatives in Wisconsin know more about them than we do, meaning herself and Nukumus. Many of the elders will not talk about them, period. I asked about the bear walker. Nukumus said they were once Anishinaabe medicine men who were taken over by an evil spirit. Once they became a bear walker, they can never be a man again. Most of the time we can find those who are taken over by this evil spirit and put them away so the medicine people can try and push the evil spirit out. They usually do. Sometimes the spirit is so strong and the person runs off into the woods. It's those that become transformed into a bear walker. They have the head of a bear, the body of a man, hands like a man, but their nails become like claws. Their toenails become like claws. We know when a bear walker is near. A light that looks like a ball of lightning can be seen moving through the trees. They will come to their victims 4 times. On the 4th time, the victim dies. It's when we see this ball of light, we let the medicine people know, and they set out to rid us of the bear walker. Unlike a W, a bear walker can be killed. Sadly, the man is killed, but the spirit is released to find another to take over. I ask, you can't kill a W? She leaned toward me and said, you can't kill what wasn't born in this world. They come from a spirit world, one we can't go to. Medicine people have been to the spirit world and said they never seen a W there. They came from another, and that's all you need to know. She said nothing more about the subject. Creepy. Again, I changed the subject. I told her how Mr. Ash wrote that the Sabe had the power of the star people and asked if she knew what it may be. She said, Sabe can live in this world and the spirit world. They can change our minds, that is, manipulate our minds to see what they want us to see. They can disappear in front of you or become an animal and run away. They can take you into their world. You may never know you've entered it if you turn back and go the way you came. Others disappear into this world and never come back. And this, too, is rare, but it happens. Many of the younger generations will not believe this can't happen. They've been taught by modern education that tells them it doesn't exist. Even when a search party can find the footprints of the missing person, they suddenly end. The young people will say, a bear got them, or they didn't want to be found. Nonsense like this. They don't believe what their eyes and senses are telling them. I told Nukumus what she describes as a world is what some scientists call a portal, a doorway to another dimension. She began to laugh. Now, as said before, these women are extremely intelligent, and they gave me a lesson. Nukumus said, a dimension is not a world. A dimension is a mirror image of here and of us. Though in a dimension you can live in a mansion and be rich and be better or worse than you are now. In a different world, it's just that, not of the earth. These scientists you speak of must be fools with a diploma. They live by what others have told them, and doing the same as they were taught, and every now and then they find something new. I wonder if truth and knowledge is a part of their search. Our people have told these scientists about the star people for years, and they won't listen. They call us crazy or worse. We, for the most part, don't speak to them anymore. It's a waste of breath. The star people used to give us knowledge of these worlds, but not anymore. Sabe has kept this knowledge and passed it down to their youth. Most of us lost this knowledge and can't pass it down to our youth. There's some medicine and holy men that still have this knowledge, but won't speak of it. Though the medicine they give us can't be from this world, yet even our own young people won't listen. They'd rather walk around with a cell phone watching dumb people eat laundry soap. There is an awakening coming. The newer generation have begun to listen to the elders again. There's hope. The knowledge of the star people can be handed down someday by those that have it. Until then, those that have it will keep it. I asked, can the Sabe make us sick? She said, yes, and heal us too. It is said, those that disrespect them can be struck with sickness, even cancer. They can scramble your mind. What's that mean? They can cause you to tremble and lose your bodily functions, like Mr. Ash wetting himself. Their voices are powerful. I said, oh, I know, I've heard them scream and roar. It does get your attention at 2 o'clock in the morning. They both laughed, and Miss D said, at any time of the day. I said, true. I hope I never pissed them off. Newcomb said, you know them. They know you. You give respect, and they give it back. Just remember, it's better to not know they are there than it is to know they are there. They'll watch you from a distance, and you'll never know it. It's when you do see them or hear them. It's when you do see them or hear them, it's a warning. The warning may not be about them. They know more about the woods than you. Always listen and feel the earth. It's a great teacher. She began to laugh, better than those who give fools diplomas. Well, damn. I didn't realize I wrote this much. I've said so much more from my time with these ladies. I recorded everything. I admit they are both long-winded. They get started and off they go. I left out the Ojibwe words this time. I know they're not easy to pronounce. If you and others like, I can send along a word list. For now, I'll end it here by saying, I left the UP with a hell of a lot more knowledge than I had when I arrived. Point is, folks, respect the woods. They hold more than deer and elk. To the Ojibwe, bear, deer, bobcat, elk, moose, etc. are not wild. Nothing is wild in their home. We become the visitors. So respect the woods and forests and know that there are other beings on this earth that we have not been told about since our childhood. You won't find experts on TV, just actors with their own agenda. Meet the elders in your part of the world and speak to them honestly and knowingly. There's so many encounters that could have gone differently if we were properly educated. I so agree with that. That education doesn't come from a TV show or a university. We should all feel at ease in the woods and not be afraid of its true inhabitants. You have become separated from the earth. It's time to get reconnected. All the best to those in this year's hunt. More importantly, stay safe out there. Take care, everyone, and after hunting season, I'll dive back into the diaries and send more. All the best, Brian Stidham, Meteki Oasis, all my relations. There you go. How appreciative I am. I can't speak for everybody else here, but I am so freaking appreciative of your time and sharing it with everybody here through me, man. Absolutely looking forward to hearing more. I miss speaking with my First Nations superhero women. I kept thinking about them reading through this whole share, and I'll be getting in touch with them shortly. I am absolutely stacked up to here with shit I gotta do. But anyway, there's so much in there that correlates, directly relates to so many incidences and experiences, right? And also what I've said since day one, as take Dave Plattis as an example, responsible for collecting how many samples of DNA, and I watch him, and I watch what he does with his time and what he focuses on, right? And what's he focused on now? What's he learned? Where's his journey brought him? He's looking up there to the dangers to us are coming from up there. That's what he's discovered in his own time, and lots of it spent that meshes right up with what we just had shared with here, right? So there. Take from it what you will or leave it. It's a long one. You might want to listen to it again. There's some very important information being shared in there. And I'll tell you what, if you have been listening to the people who have shared their experiences on this channel and their knowledge, so much in that is absolutely meshed right up, right? So, there you go. I'll be back with more. Much more.
Right. Good old Steve.